Hi, gang. Hello, hello. If you are with me in real time via YouTube, like Stephen Smith and Sean Nichols and Tammy and Corinne, the whole gang is here. Hello, Jamal. I say good morning to all of you. The Tuesday poll question at Smerconish.com is going to require a little explanation, but I'm really into it. Do you agree with Bari Weiss that what happened was that the far left destroyed the center left in America? I'll explain in just a moment. Let me say this. I was flying for a good part of yesterday, and I got home just in time to watch the ninth inning in Philadelphia hosting LA. Actually, I flew over Citizens Bank Park, which was really cool, just to look down, and it was like a sea of red. I caught the best part of the game, but not with a happy ending. And in the aftermath of what happened Sunday, when Philadelphia football, is that how I should say it? I think so, without getting in trouble, was hosting Denver. Bo Nix, the guy's a stud. I said that. Anyway, it's exciting to have skin in the game. It is, and even if your team loses, there's another way for you to win. There's always a way to win. Play Gun Lake app and the BetParks online casino and sportsbook apps. Plus, BetParks and Play Gun Lake have your favorite classic casino games right on your phone. Make your downtime fun time. Blackjack, craps, roulette, hundreds of hot online slots. Join me on the BetParks and Play Gun Lake apps right now. New casino users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. BetParks.com, PlayGunLake.com for details. You've got to be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Michigan. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, the Tuesday poll question is this. Do you agree with Bari Weiss? And this is a quote. So if it sounds a little contorted, it's the way that it was said, actually in a speech. What happened was that the far left destroyed the center left in America. Bari Weiss is talking about the last decade. Who is Bari Weiss? Bari Weiss is the new head of CBS News. This is as a result of Paramount, Skydance, their ownership further up the food chain. The Ellisons. I got to say, I'm in the biz, and it's really hard to keep track. It's hard for me to keep track of the parent of CNN. And a lot of change is taking place up that food chain as well. I suspect, my hunch is that many people, not you because you're listening to my podcast or you're watching me on YouTube and consequently you're dialed in on these matters. That's my expectation. I'll bet you have some degree of familiarity with Bari Weiss, but I'll bet many people don't, in the same way that Charlie Kirk was not a known quantity to many Americans. And I think that speaks to our media siloing. Some folks who do know the work of Bari Weiss are having a conniption, casting her as a conservative, which I think is inaccurate. I think she's more nuanced by her own descriptions. She's center left. What she is not is status quo in the Tiffany network, in the world of CBS News. And in comparison to what they're used to at CBS, sure, then I guess you'd say she's conservative. So she sent out a memo to staff, 10 principles that will guide her leadership as the newly named editor-in-chief, that's the proper title, at CBS. And not controversial in any of these things, but just interesting. I could spend a lot of time just parsing each of the 10 statements. 1, journalism that reports on the world as it actually is. 2, journalism that is fair, fearless, and factual. 3, journalism that respects our audience enough to tell the truth plainly wherever it leads, and so on and so forth. I've got the memo in today's Tuesday Smerconish.com daily newsletter. I also have a Jessica Testa profile of Bari Weiss, and when I placed it in the newsletter, I didn't know that it would also be on the front page below the fold of today's New York Times. Really insightful. And I want to give you a little background on Bari Weiss and then take you to the poll question. The profile begins this way. On Monday, Ms. Weiss was named the new editor-in-chief of CBS News. The network's owner, Paramount, also announced the acquisition of her startup, the Free Press, for a price said to be about $150 million in cash and stock. In its nearly 100 years, CBS has not seen a leader quite like Ms. Weiss. Neither has the media industry. Ms. Weiss, 41, has ascended the mountain of journalism on a slingshot. Love that description. Further along, it says she describes herself as a left-leaning centrist, a radical centrist, a gay woman who is moderately pro-choice, married to Nellie Bowles, a former Times reporter, as is Bari Weiss, who is co-founder of the Free Press, and, says Bari Weiss, a proud recipient of the label Zionist fanatic. There's also discussion in the Times profile about the symbolism of this, the symbolism and the power of independent media. You know, with power up for grabs, some younger outlets have spent the last few years jostling for it. The Bulwark, Punchbowl News, Puck, Semaphore, et cetera, et cetera. She comes from this world, and in 5 years has just built a media powerhouse. It says, Ms. Weiss, the appointment is an acknowledgement of her professional ascension, 5 years after slamming the door at the New York Times behind her, accusing the paper of discouraging bold and challenging writing. All right, now getting closer to the poll question. So further along in this profile, I'm reading it and I'm saying to myself, I'm not sure if I circled the paragraph in my print edition. I think I probably did. This will just give you a little insight into how I roll. Yeah, here it is. So far into the profile, there's a paragraph that I thought was interesting. It says this: so many of the things, this is a quote from Bari Weiss, so many of the things so many of us have been going on about for the past decade are finally going out of style, Ms. Weiss said in February in a speech at the so-called right-wing Davos. And in the electronic version of that quote, there was an embedded link to the speech. Actually, it was a link to the Free Press. The Free Press had a paywall. I had to do an end around in order to get the speech, but I got it. And I'm so glad that I did, because it gave me such an insight to Bari Weiss. And every time I say Bari Weiss, I almost say Barry White. But it gave me an insight into her thinking. And I have to tell you, I really like this speech. I really, really appreciate the speech that she delivered. So the speech was in February of this year. In February of this year. So think about it. Trump has won the election. Trump has been inaugurated. And she's now speaking at ARC, which is the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. They're meeting in London. They have, I think, 4,000 attendees. Yeah, 4,000 people attended this London conference. Niall Ferguson is one of them. Douglas Murray is another leader. Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Does that give you a feel for the sort of people, you know, like a conservative Woodstock? And the title of her speech is Against the Vandals. Against the Vandals. The short form thesis is that what happened on the left over the past decade, she argues, is a cautionary tale for a right that wants to look away from the danger ahead. And the reason I'm so in tune with this is she is warning both ends of the political spectrum, you better police your fringe. I mean, that's the short version. I can cut to the chase and just tell you that what she believes happened on the left is that they did not police their ranks. And the fringe took hold and did the party in. And that's why Kamala Harris lost the election. And that she sees the same risk coming from the right now that they have power, meaning the Trump administration and Republican control of both houses of Congress. I mean, a very quick summary. Early on in the speech, she praises the group that she's speaking before. Quote, perhaps another way of saying this is, are you tired of all the winning? And what winning is she referring to? Not just Trump's victory in the United States, but she spins around the globe and talks about different elements of the rise of populism that is rejecting the left. In Italy, quote, Giorgia Meloni said declinism in the West is not inevitable, it is a choice, and she chose differently. In El Salvador, Nayib Bukele has turned his country from one of the most dangerous nations on earth into one of the safest in the Western Hemisphere. In Canada, Justin Trudeau has stepped down, and on and on and on. And then she turns her attention to the United States and talks about things that are taking place in the US. Quote, the vibe shift has traveled so far, so fast, it has reached even our plastic straws. And then Bari Weiss in February, speaking at ARC in London, speaks of the last decade. So many of the things so many of us have been going on about for the past decade, the stigmatization of common sense, the shaming of those who suggested that crime should be illegal, the casting out of those who refuse to parrot the mindless slogan of the day, are at last going out of style. You could be forgiven for thinking it's all gravy because the last thing anyone wants to hear when they're flashing high is that there's turbulence ahead. The last thing you want at a great party is someone to turn up the lights and turn off the music. And then I thought the key part in describing, well, how did we get where we are, said Bari Weiss in this very well-written, thoughtful speech. So I hope you will forgive me for looking back to understand how we arrived here. It's the story of how a political movement can lose its way with dizzying speed and a cautionary tale about where we could be headed. A few years ago, nearly every millennial in nearly every influential seat in America decided that police departments descended from slave patrols. So we were told we had to abolish the police. We had to abolish prisons. They said that the existence of America was a crime, that we had to do land acknowledgments before every meeting and declare our gender in our email signatures. They said that degrowth and socialism were the only ways to go and that too many kids would kill the planet. You get the picture? There were riots. They tore down statues. What didn't get renamed got transformed entirely from within. Eventually, people got tired of this insanity. And then she said, elections are only every 4 years. In the meantime, the movement destroyed more things than it's possible to capture in a single speech. So she really goes out and obliterates the left and says they've destroyed the Democratic Party. Quote, the other thing that it destroyed, at least for the time being, was the Democratic Party. It became unrecognizable. The Democratic candidate for president promised the American Civil Liberties Union in writing that her White House would pay for sex change surgeries for illegal immigrants in prison for violent crimes. It became utterly detached from reality. And then Bari Weiss said, in a line, what happened was that the far left destroyed the center left in America. That's the poll question. And then she concludes the speech by saying, hey, it's a cautionary title. It's a cautionary tale, pardon me, for the right. Beware. That's not the sense you get going online these days. I'm just picking this up midstream. And some places offline too, where power is celebrated instead of principle, where power is quickly becoming the only principle. If that continues without being challenged, we may wind up spending the next few years watching the same story we just lived through on the other side as the far right, not the one defined by cable news, which includes most of us here today, devours what remains of the center right. What does this group, which differs from the rest of the right in its open embrace of illiberalism, sound like? An awful like the far left. I totally agree with that. The fringes. I mean, she's condemning. It's going to be a really interesting ride to see what she does at CBS. But I personally, I'm embracing this speech. I'm not holding myself out as an expert on all things Bari Weiss. I do read the Free Press. But I am embracing what she said in this speech, and I'm so happy that I went down the rabbit hole by clicking on an embedded link and then going and finding it, because it made me all the more wise about what she might try to do. And if she's out to say enough of extremism, then I'm with, taking a new shot at running CBS under her style. So there's more to it, but I think that I've given you, the title of the speech has the word vandals in it. And as she's talking about the right, she said this: as the left defaced and desecrated statues of Churchill, the vandals on the right desecrate his name and his memory. You probably get that reference. I mean, there have been some invocations of Churchill from the right that I think are wholly inappropriate. So she blames the left for tearing down the Churchill statue, and then in this case says, yeah, but the way the right invokes his name isn't proper either. I think you get it. I think you get it. So the Tuesday poll question at Smerconish.com: do you agree with Bari Weiss that what happened was the far left destroyed the center left in America? I agree. And if I'd had the ability to put in the additional thought of, and the same appears to be happening with the right, I'd have done that too, because I agree with her in that respect. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Subscribe, please, to the YouTube channel and set yourself up for notifications so that anytime I'm speaking live on YouTube, you can be here with me. Episode 4 of the Mingle Project is in the works, and we're looking forward to being able to produce that this week. Yeah, really, really excited about that. And I can tell you, episode 4 is, the first episode was the lay of the land, the need to restore common experience. And then we had a conversation about the most primal form of mingling, and that is sex. And then Dr. Brian Rosenwald took us down a historical path, talking about how talk radio became so polarized and took the rest of the media with it. And I don't mind telling you that episode 4 is going to feature David Wasserman from the Cook Political Report, and we'll be having a conversation about self-sorting. I really credit David with opening up my mind to the threat of self-sorting as distinguished from gerrymandering. So I'll differentiate the two when he's my guest. That's in the works. It's going to happen soon. But I'm really excited about the Mingle Project. And I'm not sure. People are asking me, how many episodes will there be? I don't know. I can tell you there'll be at least a dozen until I feel like I've really rounded out this subject. And I so appreciate the ability to go long form by video. So it's just one more reason to please make sure you're subscribing to my YouTube channel and setting yourself up for notifications. All right, Bari Weiss. Again, just on the statement that I pulled from that speech, go vote on today's poll question. And thank you so much. See you, gang.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. So it's not live.